I don't think there's anyone in this audience or anyone who will be looking at the news tonight or at any time in the near future who would disbelieve that we have a serious crisis in the area of food production, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the world. The FAO's statements only last year, after the 2008 increases in prices across the world and subsequent food riots, stated that an increase in 10% in food prices every time pushes a further 40 million people into poverty and below the poverty line. In fact, they went as far as to say that by 2050 there will be 9.3 billion people on planet Earth, many of whom at today's level of production we will be unable to feed. And so therefore it is imperative, when one looks at what is taking place in the world markets, that we start to look at producing our own food for our own food security. Many countries across the world today have stopped the export of food. Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Russia, Australia. They've all stopped exporting the kinds of food that we purchase, that we import in large quantities. And if one were to look at our food import bill every year, which currently stands at around about $4 billion, one will see that the majority of items that we import are items that those countries traditionally export. Rice from India, rice from Thailand, rice from Vietnam, wheat from Australia, from Mexico, from Australia. Items, when you look at our food import bill, you will see those are the items that we are primarily dependent on from foreign countries. Furthermore, over the last 12 to 18 months, there are many countries who are not just hoarding supplies of their own produce, but there are many countries who are willing to pay over and above market prices to purchase and to stockpile food for their own countries. The Philippines is a good example. They are importing, they are one of the world's largest importers of rice, and they are now importing and stockpiling rice for their own people. As a direct result, there is even less available to small little countries like Trinidad and Tobago. Our rice production has moved from about 30% of our consumption only about 12 to 15 years ago to less than 5% today. In other words, we are currently importing 95% of the rice that we consume in Trinidad and Tobago. And clearly, based not just on the soaring prices of price of rice, but also on the availability, we've got to ensure that we are able to provide for ourselves, not just in rice, but in other areas. There is a draft rice production policy that we have, which encourages the production of, which encourages rice seed production as one of the possible ways to revitalize the rice industry. The Agricultural Development Bank has also been mandated to ensure that they incentivize and initiate programs to develop the rice sector in Trinidad and Tobago. And many of you may have seen very recently, I think it may have been about 3 weeks ago, that the ADB launched the new microcredit facility where they will be prepared not just to go out into the communities and make loans more available to farmers, but they will be looking at giving smaller loans where people need to start off, where they don't necessarily have collateral, but they want to get involved in farming. Through our revised incentive program, which was launched only about 3 weeks ago, for the first time we are now offering a guaranteed price of rice at $2.99 a kilogram of rice seed to our farmers. The policy also identifies the need, the very real need for the mechanization of farms and the implementation of new technology. And I'm glad that Mr. Luke alluded to how they are about to run this farm here in Trinidad and Tobago, because I've been saying for the last 12 months since we came into office, the last 15 months since we came into office, that we cannot continue with business as usual. We must look at agriculture as an organized business. It must be an entrepreneurial activity. It must be so that it must be an activity that when you look at it from the outset, you know you can make money. It must be an area where the government provides the opportunity, the enabling environment to allow you to become entrepreneurs, to make money out of it. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Otherwise, we're not going to get young people involved in any of the agricultural sector. So I'm happy to be here today to listen to Mr. Luke talk about the fact that this is going to be a highly mechanized environment. And he used a very good word, precision agriculture. Precision agriculture, and that says it all. 2 days ago, we happened to be out in places like Mora and Vega de Ropuch and Cunupia and other places on a media tour, highlighting to the media the work that the ministry has been doing over the last 15 months. And when one looks at drip irrigation and the way that some farmers are actually utilizing drip irrigation, and it is actually being demonstrated by the ministry as a new thrust, where fertilization and water and irrigation actually goes directly to the root of the plant. And essentially, what it does is it means that the plant is receiving its nutrients and its water exactly where it needs it, and not sprinkled and wasted all over the place. It gives you an indication of how scientific we can actually be in producing higher yielding crops and produce. We have Mr. Richard Singh, I see at the back there, who is a young rice farmer and also a member of the Agricultural Society of Trinidad and Tobago. And he's now in the process of the use of piloting new equipment in the rice sector. And I want to let you know that Richard, together with other members of the farming community and the ministry, are now looking to identify thousands of acres of land across Trinidad and Tobago that will now go into rice cultivation.